When you think of the Netherlands, what's the first thing you think of? Tulips, stroopwafels, museums, artists, and dairy. But more specifically, when I think of the Netherlands, I think of Vermeer. However, more specifically, I'll be focusing on Milkmaids, a group of women that managed and worked on all of the dairy products within Dutch society. And while they were assigned a highly important role, they were seen very negatively by Dutch society, especially by Dutch men. My claim is that milkmaids in Dutch society, although assigned a highly important role and task, were seen as lower class and seen as sexual deviants, lazy, and irresponsible. However, Vermeer's painting, The Milkmaid, revolutionized and, in my opinion, is an early example of modern feminism slowly changing the way in which Dutch society, especially Dutch men, saw them. Now, you might be asking yourself, why were milkmaids seen so poorly in Dutch society? And the reasons for that were that they were seen as sexually available. They were seen as highly promiscuous. They were seen as sinful and corruptive to men. Housewives and wives in general, or women of upper class, were seen as better. And according to Simon Schama, they explained that if then the housewife role represented the incarnation of vigilant virtue in women, the maid was held to incarcerate the opposing qualities, sin and corruption, meaning that maids, including milkmaids as a whole, who were working for the house and the housewife, were seen as dangerous and even as possible competition for them, especially when there were men around. They were also seen as sexually available and promiscuous because they were seen as lesser than due to their lower class. This is according to Jonathan Jansen, who is the owner of the Essential Vermeer website. And both of these points is why Vermeer's depictions of a milkmaid is so different and special. Rather than depicting the milkmaid as some sort of sexually promiscuous person, he depicts the maid as highly diligent and focused and determined to do her task. Rather, he's not even focused entirely on her, he's rather focused on wanting to capture the moment of her cleaning and doing her job of a milkmaid working with dairy products. So he's focused more so on capturing that moment in time and depicting her as a neutral person, as just another person that exists that does their job, rather than associating her with any symbolism or patriarchal idea. In Vermeer's painting, The Milkmaid, there is a woman who is a milkmaid that is currently diligently working her tasks. She is pouring a vase or a jug of milk into a bowl, as seen by the white liquid coming out of it. You can tell that this woman is a milkmaid because she's wearing work attire. She's wearing working clothes. She's not wearing anything super formal. She's wearing a bright blue skirt with a long sleeve top, and her sleeves are rolled up, showing off her arms. And she's wearing a bonnet, which signifies that she is in fact currently working. This is also a highly domestic setting, as you can see that the woman is in the home, and she's surrounded by bread and other products, and most importantly, she's in this very mundane and very delicate, quiet room. The reason the room is kind of delicate is because there's a basket that's sort of behind her, along with this sort of rustic-looking window, and some what I think are mosaics. And along with that, this painting is rather special and different not just in terms of the subject matter, as Irenetta explains. This is just a woman that is being captured in a moment of time, where she is diligently working, doing what she can to do what she needs to do. That is the main focus of the work. It's not about knowing who she is or whether or not she's a sexual deviant, blah blah blah. It's about just her doing her task. Not only is that part of her special, but this painting is special as well because it's rather different from other Baroque paintings. As you can see, there's a very low contrast. There isn't as much contrast in this painting as there are in other Baroque paintings that were made at this time. Yes, there is a sense of lighting, of course, and there is a bit of contrast, but that extreme contrast and the extreme dramaticism that the Baroque period is known for is not found in this piece. This piece is very tranquil, as seen with the cool colors. There's a use of blues and this sort of green-blue tablecloth and this sort of beigey color that accents along the wall. Overall, this painting is very cozy and adds to that sort of picturesque vision that Vermeer has, as Chapman references. Overall, the woman is depicted as just a working figure, doing her task and nothing more. The focus is rather on the woman's activity rather than the woman herself, which is why this painting is so special. And next, I will move on to talk about other paintings of other Dutch artists and why they're different, because there are a lot of Dutch paintings that depict maids in a not so positive light. The first artwork that I'll be looking at to compare from Vermeers is The Milkmaid by Lucas van Leyden, which is completely different in terms of formal qualities. First of all, as you can see, it's not a painting. And other than the name, that's where the similarities end in terms of how the two depict milkmaids. For example, in Van Leyden's painting, although yes, the woman is seen doing her job and, like, you know, milking a cow, though she's obviously also very much not working. There's a man in the picture, and the man and the woman are staring very intently at each other, with the milkmaid seemingly almost trying to seduce him. And this I can confirm is because the term to milk was a term that was meant to lure and entice someone, to seduce someone within the 17th century Netherlands, according to the article Fools and Women. This means that the milkmaid was attempting to seduce the man within the artwork, and therefore she was seen as a temptress and as a distraction, and depicted as trying to sort of distract the man from his tasks, and also therefore she's not doing her job, and therefore she's a bad influence kind of thing. And this is very different from Vermeer's, because obviously in Vermeer's painting the woman is very diligent and focused on her task. In the third painting, The Dissolute Household by Jan Steen, Jan Steen is the man in the center of the painting. In the center of the painting, he is holding hands with a maid, who we can confirm is a maid based on her more simplistic wear. She is also holding his hand, intertwining her fingers with his, and along with that, the maid is pouring a cup of wine to what we assume is the artist's wife, which we can tell by her garment and the clothes she's wearing. She's the best dressed out of all of the other people within this household, as seen by her what seems to be a sort of bodice and a ribbon that adorns her chest. Despite this, though, the artist is holding hands with the maid, not the wife. To me, this is a sign that the the man and the maid might be having an affair behind the wife's back, almost signifying the amount of chaos and the sort of secrecy that happens behind the scenes, where maids are usually tempting and seducing the men that run the house behind the wives' backs, which further adds on to that negative stereotype and negative view that Dutchmen have within society. In the painting The Idle Servant by Nicholas Mies, there's an upper-class woman pointing at the lower-class kitchen maid. The lower-class kitchen maid is sleeping, and if you notice, within the sink, there's a bunch of unwashed dishes, and seemingly there are a lot of tasks that haven't been finished. This goes back to the idea that maids were seen as lazy and as slackers, which is clearly depicted by the upper-class woman's facial expression and the way she's pointing at her. The body language exudes confidence and almost a sense of superiority, thinking that she's better than the lower-class woman just because the lower-class woman, the kitchen maid, is sleeping. This goes back to the idea that women who are upper-class, or women that are dressed more nicely, or that present themselves in a certain way, are seen as better. And last but not least, in the painting Woman Plucking a Duck by Nicholas Mies, there's a woman, as the painting says, plucking a duck. Although she has highly identical responsibilities as a milkmaid, as she's a kitchen maid rather than a milkmaid, therefore she works with all food, the woman is very subtly sexual. Unlike Vermeer's Milkmaid, which is depicted in a more neutral light, the woman in Woman Plucking a Duck is a lot more subtly sexual. For example, she's with her legs spread apart, which can be seen as a symbolism of her being loose and wanting attention. There's also the specific verb that Franitz, who wrote the article Willy Women on Sexual Imagery in the Dutch Art of the 17th Century, according to him, the Dutch verb vogelen is a slang for engaging in sexual intercourse, and is also associated with ducks, and obviously ducks are highly promiscuous and highly sexual animals as well. And Franitz goes into multiple paintings about how ducks in those paintings are seen as symbols of sex and lust. Therefore, obviously, the woman is being correlated with sexual desire and other promiscuous, more taboo subjects at the time, further adding on to that negative perception. In conclusion, Vermeer's painting The Milkmaid is different from other paintings of milkmaids that were made during the Dutch Golden Age and the Baroque era, due to the fact that it went against the common negative perception of milkmaids within Dutch society. While Vermeer's painting is very cozy and depicts the milkmaid doing her work and being diligent, and rather than focusing on who the woman is, focusing on capturing the moment in time of the woman doing her work. While on the other hand, the other artists such as Lucas van Leyden, Nicolas Mies, and J. Steen are all depicting the milkmaids, as highly disobedient, enticing, and temptresses, and women that aren't doing their work. So there's a dichotomy between the two parallels, where Vermeer captures the woman as more neutral, while the others captured the milkmaid in a much more negative light, as we've seen. However, even with Vermeer's highly progressive views and his very new and contemporary way of capturing a milkmaid, it's still important to remember that all of these paintings that I've mentioned were all created by male artists, by men. Therefore, all of these perceptions, these points of views, they are all part of the male gaze, and they all come from a male perspective. Meaning that even though Vermeer has a highly progressive view, there is still a lot of missing information, such as what did the woman think of milkmaids? How did lower middle class women perceive other lower middle class women that existed within the time? How did upper class women view the milkmaids, etc.? And most importantly, how did other female painters view milkmaids? There were very few women painters that were even prevalent at all, and many of them didn't even depict milkmaids. So that would further put the roles of milkmaids and other lower-class servants into further obscurity, and leaving us with a relatively small amount of information. Despite all of the investigation and perspectives given to us by these paintings at the time, nonetheless, they are still highly valuable. It is just a shame that we are unable to gather any more information due to the lack of perspectives.